I'm talking to John Knorr, CEO and founder of SIS Business Systems, and today we're talking about Uglii for persons and households. John, why are we talking about persons and households? I thought that search was free and unrestricted.
Joe, the reason we're talking about it is that I think it's part of the systems that we've really neglected, and the reason for that is that the registration of businesses is sort of the most important and immediate part of our systems, but the registration of persons and households is important later in, say, 6 months' time. So I thought we should be talking about that.
So now, persons and households actually can register on the system?
Yeah, persons and households can register, and they're doing that because sometimes we need to know who they are or where they are. Okay. Now, for normal search, if they go into the Uglii Find system, they can search, no problems. We don't need any information about them. If they go into Uglii brand system, they can search, of course, and we don't need to know who they are. And classified ads, they can do the same thing. They can go in and buy a classified ad without us having to know who they are. But when it comes to doing things like requesting offers in the Uglii business to consumer marketplace system, we need to know who they are.
Right.
Now, the reason for that is that we need to know where they are geographically, and that might relate to a mobile phone place, to know what offers to make them, because they've got to be geographically relevant to that,
Sure.
to where that person is. So if I'm in a foreign city and I'm requesting accommodation deals, then that's a fairly simple thing for me to request to get offers from the various hotels that are local to where my phone is. But the system needs to know where the phone is. So that requires some registration process.
Sure. And also, I'm assuming some goods may be, like in the business to consumer, they may be goods that are going to be delivered. So for that purpose, you would need to know geographically.
Well, that's right. Geographically is important.
Of delivery.
So we have two classifications really. One is a person, and that relates to the person and their mobile phone. That's what we're really talking about there.
Right.
And the other is a household, which has got a fixed geographic location that the household puts into the system. So if they request an offer for delivery of a pizza, let's say, or something more important than that, then there is a geographic base for making that offer to that person.
Yep.
Because pizza suppliers only want to deliver really locally, so that's important. And a builder really only wants to work fairly locally.
Sure.
So that geographic component of it requires a registration of the person or the household in the system.
And they don't need an ABN or anything.
No. That's fairly straightforward. What we're really relying on is a phone number, a mobile phone number, and an email address.
Right.
So, there's a fair amount of information in that about a person, enough to allow us to be comfortable that requests for offers are not frivolous or fictitious.
They've got to be legitimate.
They've got to be legitimate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can check that they are legitimate and they're being made, those requests for offers are being made by people that are trusted in the system.
Sure.
Okay. Same with households. We need to know that the household is part of the system and that they've signed up to the rules, which are fairly easy to comply with.
Yep.
It's a very easy registration process. It might take a couple of minutes compared to the registration process that a business goes through, which is pretty arduous in our system. We're putting them through the hoops. We want to know everything about them.
Yep.
Because that information is important. If I'm trying to trade with that business from the other side of the world, I want the comfort of knowing a fair bit about that business and who they are.
And consumers want to know that they can trust the system.
Yeah, that's right. From a consumer's point of view, we don't want to intrude into who that consumer is. We really want to know where they may be with their mobile phone. If they're requesting, like, as I mentioned before, accommodation in another city, then it's the location of their mobile phone that's going to give us that information. If they're travelling along a road and they want to request offers for petrol, then we don't want getting requests for offers all over the country. We want it to be relevant down that road that they're travelling on. So that information is required. Those sort of processes are fairly, as I mentioned, are fairly simple, and we're not into them yet, but we will be in say 6 months after we launch the system. So they will become important. They'll become important for affiliates too, because the system has a commission arrangement that divides commission when we're dealing with those marketplace systems. Now, the marketplace systems we haven't talked about a lot, but those systems work on the basis of a request for offer and various offers being made to that person or business that requested those offers. Now, what the billing system does is it apportions revenue and it splits it between the requesting entity and the offering entities, and divides the relevant commission up between the organisations that brought the requesting entity into the system and the organisations that brought in the offering entity into the system.
Right.
Now that's very important, because it's important for commissions for affiliates in particular that they understand that there is money associated with consumers or persons coming into the system and households coming into the system. So now they don't pay for anything, but there is revenue apportioned because of their requests in the system.
So affiliates can actually get commission through a business transaction that's done between a business and consumer?
Yeah, they're getting commission on the fees that have been paid by the business in making an offer to that consumer.
Okay,
yeah.
So I was under the impression that affiliates only got commission through businesses purchasing services.
Well, they are. That's exactly right. A business is actually purchasing. A business is purchasing a service, which is the right to make an offer to that consumer. Sure. What the billing system is doing is saying, okay, look, there's two parties that have been instrumental in this event, therefore we're going to split the commission between the two parties.
Understand.
Okay, does that make sense?
It does.
Now, which means it's very important for affiliates and for people involved in the Uglii Coalition, organisations that are involved in the Uglii Coalition, to understand that even if they're a telco or a postal system or a radio network, whatever they may be, they're going to derive revenues, and very significant revenues, from the fact that people, whether they're sort of as consumers or households as consumers, have registered in the system through them. So it's very, very important that they keep that in mind.
Sure.
Okay. What will also happen is that Uglii is predicting that the weight of the systems will shift from the original systems that we're launching at the moment, which are the Uglii Find system and the Uglii Brand system. They're going to be very important, but as the Uglii marketplace systems come on stream, the shift will be towards those systems because they are much more powerful and they're much more convenient.
Yes.
Now, the importance is that convenience and the importance has got to do with the fact that I can request an offer and I don't have to make any prejudgment about where the best offer is going to come from. I don't have to say, look, this is I'm looking within 5 k's of me. I can make my request for offer and see all offers where, that come regardless of where they come from.
Sure.
So that's really the best deal that I can get for me as a consumer.
Very powerful part of the system.
It's a very powerful part of the system, but what we're saying, and this is important for affiliates and national partners and global partners, is that the use of the search processes that we've got will perhaps not grow as fast or may even decline compared to the marketplace systems, which are much more powerful than those search systems.
Sure. And marketplace is also business to business, isn't it? Not just business to consumer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what's the importance of these systems in developing countries?
Well, we've studied pretty well the importance of the systems in developing economies, because we understand that the Uglii B2B marketplace systems really facilitate trade and businesses being discoverable and being able to make offers into an economy, whether it's their own economy, their own neighbourhood, across the other side of their country or across the other side of the world. That's very powerful, and it just opens up so many opportunities for everybody in every economy. It's not just developing economies, but it's such a powerful system. From a consumer's point of view, I must admit, when we first started building these systems, I thought that because consumer expenditure is so big in the established economies, in the so-called advanced economies, that the system was going to be incredibly important in those economies. I've started to understand, I think the whole Uglii sort of movement started to understand that these systems are going to be extremely important for consumers in the developing economies as well. The reason for that is that consumers in those developing economies have less money to play with.
Yes.
Okay? Therefore, any system that allows them, using a mobile phone, to request for free an offer for the supply of what's important to them, and it might be their food, is going to help them buy their food at the best possible price.
Yep.
In their economy. Now, the importance of that is clearly that if food is a major component of my expenditure, then that's really, really important to me.
Sure.
Okay, now let's contrast that with, say, you and I in the developing world, where, look, frankly, I don't know about you, but you're Dutch, so you might be a bit more attentive to money than I am, but as far as consuming food and things like that, it really doesn't rate on my, I pay the price, I don't really care that much.
Yes.
Same with petrol, I put petrol in the car, I won't go where I've got to queue up because
Yep.
my time is more important than the difference
Sure.
between the highest and lowest price for petrol.
Yeah.
Okay, so those sort of discretionary spends are not that important to me. I mean, I'll differentiate if I'm buying an airline ticket, I'll differentiate if I'm buying a car or improving a house or something like that. They're important to me.
Yeah,
So
on those more major purposes.
But
purchases.
the day-to-day stuff of my
Buying milk
my
and
food, milk and bread, really doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
convenience.
Yeah.
So in some ways, these systems now are starting to appear to us to be more important. The consumer part of these systems might be more important in the developing economies than we previously thought. Now, this has been driven home to me fairly recently by what's happening around the world with food prices, where food prices are going up for a whole lot of reasons, are going up, and they're going to go up, for a long time, I think.
Yes.
Partly because there's some processes like food is being used for fuel in a lot of countries, for motor cars and things like that.
Yep.
Putting the morality of that aside, that's still affecting the marketplace for food and pushing up the price of food, which is tragic in a lot of circumstances. If people are right on the edge, then pushing up the price of food is really
Yes.
a traumatic thing for those people.
Yeah.
And which of course is meaning that there's more people in the world going hungry because they just can't afford food.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that ability for them to use their mobile phone to buy food at the best price is going to be an important thing for them, and it's going to be important in all developing marketplaces.
And that's free to them to do.
It's free to them to do. The business that makes them the offer has got to pay a small amount of money to it, but still it's insignificant in terms of the cost of the food.
Of course.
Okay. So consumer registrations is going to be important in all economies.
Right.
Okay. Not just the developing economies, not just the developed economies, but all economies.
Yeah.
But with different weighting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So the message from this is that it's very important for global partners, national partners, and affiliates to pay attention to their planning for registration of persons and households. It's going to be very important.
Right. Okay.
To their revenue.
So, John, when are affiliates going to be able to register persons and households?
Joe, I think we'll release that facility when we're ready to release the Uglii classified advertising system, because that's the first point along the process of releasing these systems where registration may be important to a person or a household.
Right.
They want to sell something on that system, then being registered would be helpful.
So anyone in the Uglii Coalition should then, once that has happened, basically get out there and try and register as many households and
absolutely,
people
because I guess what I'm trying to say is that the revenue returns from registering households are going to become very, very relevant,
Right.
very relevant for every affiliate, or just about every affiliate across the planet.
Yeah.
Because those services, those Uglii spatial marketplace services, are apportioning revenue to the consumer the person, the household that's making a request for an offer
Yeah.
to their Uglii coalition stream of people that brought them in.
Yeah. Well, already a lot of people are using the internet to, you know, whether it's about purchases or information about purchases. I mean, you know, that's become quite prevalent, I think, hasn't it?
You're absolutely right, and it's only going to get more important. And when our systems come in, those processes are much, much more easy for a consumer to use. They one click on their mobile phone, a button on their mobile phone, which allows them to request offers for the things that they want, and particularly the things that they use a lot of. So if they're using a lot of petrol, then one click and the system knows where they are and which way they're heading. So,
all right. Thanks very much, John.
Thanks, Joe.